Hi boys and girls, Mrs. Ponzio here. For homework tonight, you guys are going to be looking at the very first skill that you practiced in your writing notebook. And if you remember correctly, that was sensory writing. In sensory writing, we practice using our 5 senses to show our readers what's happening in the story rather than telling them. When we're practicing sensory writing, we're focusing on what we saw, heard, smelled, felt or touched, and tasted, if that applies. So you should have been thinking while you were writing this entry in your notebook about those 5 things. Tonight for homework, you're going to go back through that entry and highlight using a yellow highlighter the areas in your story where you told your readers what you sensed using your 5 senses. I'm going to show you how to do this with my writing. Here is my sensory writing that I wrote in my writer's notebook. And if you look, you'll notice that I have the 5 senses listed at the top. Then I have my brainstorming around my picture. And then I start my story down here at the bottom. I got out my yellow highlighter and I started to reread my story, walking myself through and asking myself whether or not I mentioned a sense, one of our 5 senses, in each particular sentence. The first spot where I saw that I had used sensory writing was the first sentence in this box. It reads, "Wafting around me were the beautiful aromas of dozens of different types of flowers." So I know that there I used the sense of smell to describe what was around me. Below that, it says, "the vibrant colors of the different blooms." That's something that kind of paints a picture inside your head. So that is seeing, the sense of sight. At the bottom of that page, I felt my elbow jut to the side as someone ran into me. So that would be feeling or touch. On the next page, I noticed that I had a lot of different sensory writing. The first thing is at the top where I say, "My ears took in the hustle and bustle of the crowds, talking, laughing, and yelling to one another." So that is obviously hearing. Then it says, "The smell of the beautiful flowers was overtaken. The stench of fish slapped me as we entered the fish market section." So that is obviously smell. Not a very good one. "The warmth of many people around me" would be a feeling. And then again, making me feel stifled, right? That was a feeling as well. "The glow of the yellow lights flickered overhead." That's seeing. "A fresh Seattle breeze swept over us." That's feeling. "With the first sip, the sweet, tangy taste of fresh lavender swirled around my tongue." That's definitely taste. I even say it there. If you look back over my entry, you will notice that I have exactly 10 different examples where I used sensory writing in my page that I wrote. If you remember correctly, I asked that you guys also had 10 different sensory details in your writing. If you did not include 10 sensory details in that page that you wrote using those 5 senses, now is your time to get them there. So your assignment tonight is to highlight every place where you use a detail from your 5 senses in describing what is going on in that picture. If you have gone through your whole page and you have not included 10 different details that are sensory, then I need you to go back through your writing and add some. You can use the margins to write in new details. You may go onto another page if you need to. When you're adding something to your story, we call that operating on your story, because you need to cut into it and do some surgery to make it better. So if you are operating on your story, then your story might be something like that, and you might notice that you need to cut into your story right here, because right there might be a really good place for you to add a sensory detail. So what you would do is you would write a number 1 at the end of the sentence before where you're going to put your sensory detail, and you would put it in a little circle. You wouldn't put the line that I just put. That's just showing the operation cut that you are imaginary making. So then you would go onto a different sheet of paper, the next sheet of paper where you have space, and you would put that number 1 right in that circle somewhere else, and that is where you would include your sensory detail. So you've cut into your story, you've done an operation on it, and here you're adding that sensory detail. So when you come into school tomorrow morning, I am going to be checking that you have highlighted in yellow 10 sensory details from your first story. And if you didn't have them embedded in your story already, I expect to see that you have operated on your story and inserted those sensory details. After you've inserted them, you're welcome to highlight those as well. But I'm going to be walking around and you're going to be pointing out to me all of your sensory details from your story. Good luck, have a wonderful night, and I will see you guys tomorrow.